3. Okay, so let's back up. So you had purchased a property in Palm Desert, right? And then
Yeah, my very first, yes.
your first one. Then you rented it out for a year, sold it.
Sold it.
Sold it, and then you went to San Pedro, bought a property, you said for about 180, right?
Yep.
And then you bought another property which is overlooking the bay in San Pedro about the same price.
Well, it was actually overlooking Portuguese Bend Beach Club, and that was in Rancho Palos Verdes.
Oh, that was okay, that was in Palos Verdes. And how long
Yeah.
were you uh in the San
There.
Pedro home before you bought the next one?
We were in the house on Ellery Place maybe 2 years.
2 years, and then
Maybe a little longer. A little
okay,
longer.
and then a little longer, and then you got some appreciation there. You stayed the 2 years because of the $500,000 of capital gains tax free. And so, how much did you sell that one for? Or did you get on the property?
I think we sold it for like 359.
Okay, 39. So you got a pretty good appreciation, or almost
Yeah.
about doubled in a short time, 2 or 3 years. Then
Yeah,
you
it was
lived
a
in
nice
Rancho Palos
location.
Verdes.
And yeah, it was, yeah, then we looked around for another home, and we bought the house in PV.
And
We lived
you
there
were
for 11
specifically
years.
you were specifically looking, for one that overlooked the ocean, right? That's what you said last time. Now,
Well,
were
we
you
were looking
looking
for
for a
something
fixer?
close to the ocean. We're
You
looking
looking
for
for a
something.
fixer?
Yeah, it was somewhat of a fixer, but it was nice. It was a nice
Nice.
home,
Okay.
but we wanted to make it, more our style. My wife wanted a kitchen that overlooked the ocean, and this one overlooked the street. So we extended the living room all the way out to the hillside that overlooked the ocean. The
Okay.
backyard overlooked the ocean.
So how much did you square footage did you add on that?
Oh, I would say a couple thousand feet.
A couple thousand
Yeah,
square feet. Okay,
yeah,
that's
easy.
a pretty big job. Okay, and
Yeah,
then
we knocked out the back end of the house, and we went from maybe 4 or 5 feet from the pool all the way out to the hillside, and then we put a deck out from there.
okay, now undertaking a big construction project like that is can be a challenge and could potentially be a nightmare with contractors that don't potentially
You're, you're looking
there's
at the contractor.
so I mean, but you had to have an architect, an engineer to project, do the plans, get them approved. So how did that process go?
That was easy.
It was easy.
Yeah, it
Okay.
went very smoothly. We kicked out the back end of the house. I had a friend of mine who I had represented. His brother framed it all in, and we had enough money to basically build the frame, put the windows in. We did an octagon dining area, a new kitchen, but we had cement floors and studs for walls for a long time, and the kids loved it. They were riding their bikes in the back, inside the house, and their skateboards and everything else, because there was probably 50, 60 feet between where the other house was and where our kitchen was going to begin.
Okay. Wow. So okay. So that makes more sense now. So then that one, you added a lot of a couple thousand square feet, you said, right?
Yeah, 15, 1,700, 1,800,
Okay.
something
So,
like that.
okay. So that plus you said 7 or 8 years. So that now I'm understanding why you were able to, when you put it on the market, you got a pretty good, $700,000 was the price, right? As
Yeah,
you said. Okay. So
yeah,
that
it
makes
was
a
a
little more sense.
completely different house. We had, I
Okay.
did something really, really different for the flooring in the house. I took used bricks, and I made them about, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of an inch. I sliced them down, two sides, each brick, and I made a square. I did a crisscross with hardwood floors. So I crisscrossed the hardwood floors like this, and then in between the crisscrosses, I put used brick in there. And it really was it was really nice. And we had a sunken bar that overlooked the pool, that had a deck on, had a counter on the outside, so you could serve drinks through into the house out to the pool. And then I built a deck that was probably 130 feet the length of the property, from one end of the back of the property to the other on the hillside, going down so that the backyard went out, over the hillside for another 10 feet or so.
Hmm. And what percentage of this would you say that you said you did it? How much did you do versus hiring
I would
people?
say that I did probably 60%, 50
Wow.
to 60%.
No, that's good that you have the know-how and the skill to be able to do it. I mean, that's saves a lot of money and
I
aggravation
would come
potential.
home after work. I would come home after work and crawl underneath the house and hook up pipes and, you name it,
No, that's good. That's a hell of a job. Okay, so then you mentioned you went to Rolling Hills and you bought that
Yeah,
other
well,
property that needed a little bit of work.
yeah,
Uh,
we had this house sold, and then we bought another piece of property, and it was a fixer, so we began working on it. And then the guy, as I told you, couldn't close the deal from this
on
rock
your
band.
house. Yes.
Yeah, and so we decided, okay, we're gonna put both houses on the market. Whichever one sells, that's the one it is. And the house, some lady that was very rich, basically said, she had a horse and, she needed all this property, and she bought that house while I was still in escrow. I was still going through escrow.
So
And
so so, so hold on. So you had yours your home fall out of escrow, right?
I,
And
and
you had
I'd already bought the other house. I hadn't closed escrow on it, but I was already under contract. So I
you,
had about 3 or 4 months of life in me where I could afford both houses.
okay. So then but when they canceled the deal on the purchase of your property, the rock band or whatever, you got their deposit, right? I mean, or did you?
Yeah, but it wasn't, he signed the contract. I had seen the house before we put the house on the market, and I was going to buy that house anyway. And so I was already negotiating on that place. And, this guy was still within the contingency period.
Okay.
So,
I see. All
so
right.
I
So
didn't get
then,
to keep the deposit.
okay. So then you put
And I
both of
wouldn't
them
have done
on.
that anyway. It wasn't right. I mean, the guy was a young kid, and,
Okay.
I wasn't going to screw him, even though he was
Okay.
screwing me.
Yeah, you got screwed. Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, you came out okay in the end. So then you put both of them on the market. The Pebbles Verdes house, the Rolling Hills house, I'm sorry, and the Rolling Hills house sells for $200,000. And
More.
you said you put it on the market while yours was still while it was still in escrow?
Yep. Double escrowed it. Yep.
That's
Yes, I did. And sold it, and we moved. We just stayed in our house, and then I sold that house.
honestly, you're lucky the internet wasn't around, and then people could see that you were still in escrow and hadn't closed while you put it on the market again.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, listen,
Right.
I just attribute it to being lucky, as my
Yeah.
dad would say. I'd rather be lucky than good. And
Okay.
and so we moved back to our house, and then about maybe a year and a half later, a friend of mine's mom, who was a realtor, told me about this house, and it was all over the news in the South Bay, where these guys had purchased this house, and they encumbered it to like $6 or $7 million, and it was just a scam, you know. And they just took loans out, didn't pay any loans, and the house this house that we were looking at had no electricity, no light, no power line going to it, or no water line going to it, because nobody had really lived in it for a long time. It was 7 acres behind the gates.
What city?
And
What city?
Rolling Hills,
Okay.
behind the gates in Rolling Hills. And I think I bought it from Crossland Savings out of Utah. And as is. I mean, because they had taken the water line and the electrical line and the gas line, and they had disconnected it, and there was an easement coming from uh, Crest Road, and it was maybe 1,000 feet down to the property, and I had to put in a water line, a electrical line, and a gas line
Okay.
from the main up on Crest Road all the way down to the property, which I
Okay.
did.
So
And
that property probably wouldn't qualify for traditional finance. Sounds like.
it did. We bought it. We financed it.
I mean, you got traditional financing or hard money
Yeah,
loans? I mean,
got a loan, the whole 9 yards.
okay.
And I used the money that we made on the other place to help restore this place, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was it was up high, overlooking the slide area, overlooking the water, overlooking marine land. That's when marine land was still around.
Mm.
I'll tell you, when I first got into escrow on the house, and I told my wife, and I took her up to see the house, she started to cry.
Mm.
It was just
Because,
a piece
okay.
of just it needed so much work.
Yeah.
But when we finished it, remodeling it, and upgrading it, it was like a resort. There was a
Okay.
15-foot there was a 15-foot deep pool, because one of the people that owned it and built it, well, a long time ago, was a diver. And so the wife was a professional diver, and so it had a 15-foot deep pool. So I resurfaced the pool, did a black bottom Pebble Tech pool, and I took a come along. Yeah, I'm sure. Do you know what a come along is?
No.
It's like almost like a winch, but it's a hand powered winch. And I bought a portable jacuzzi, and I dragged that thing up the side of the hill, and I had a jacuzzi up on the hill overlooking everything, overlooking the house. It was 7 acres, and it had about 3 acres of lawn, and it was just a beautiful place. It was a retreat. It really could have been a corporate retreat.
Okay. And that was a place that you bought as for you to move into, or what?
Yeah, that was where we were gonna live, and it was 7 acres. I had 2 acres I built a corral. I had the same guy that framed my house put in horse fencing down on the hillside, and
You're into horses?
well, at that time I had young kids, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to take them out and give them an experience. So I bought a quarter horse. And my friend that lived in Palos Verdes, he had a couple of horses, so we used to take our kids and go riding together.
Huh.
And I bought a Shetland pony for my little girl, and a quarter for me.
Okay.
Tonka, that was the horse's name.
All right.
And Tonka, actually, one of my friend's horse, we were waiting to go for a ride,
Okay.
and my friend's horse bucked and kicked Tonka, my horse, and broke his leg. And I had to take him down to a San Luis Rey Equine Center, and they held him for maybe like 3 or 4 months, and until his leg healed.
Yeah.
And then I had to put him I had to rent a stable where he couldn't move,
Mhm.
and take him out and walk him every day for another 3 or 4 months until he was rideable. And then I had to take him down to Temecula to a cowboy and have him broken again, because if you don't ride a horse for
Yeah.
8, 9, 10 months, they get a little bit
Okay.
spooked.
Got it.
So
Interesting.
but at one time we had 4 or 5 horses. We had a big yard, and
That's a lot of work.
it was.
A lot of work.
And,
Okay.
yeah.
So you live at this new home that you've remodeled and you've redone for the horses in Rolling Hills. What'd you do with the Palos Verdes home?
I sold it to the guy who owned Body Glove.
Okay, so you sold that. So you sold 2 homes. You sold the Rolling Hills
Rolling
home,
Hills.
and you sold the Palos
And
Verdes home.
right, the one
And so
overlooking the.
Okay, so you were able to, yeah, you got some gain on both those, right?
Yep, made a pretty good profit on those, and we then we stayed there. Living on top of the hill was, we were going through brakes on cars because we had to take the kids to school every day. So come down the hill, we were, my auto expense went up a lot.
Okay, the brakes and stuff. Okay, so
Yeah.
then okay, so then you lived in Rolling Hills, and did you? I mean, I thought you were a real estate. Did you buy properties to like rent out, or did you
Yeah,
do
well,
any investment?
we had a couple of we I don't remember because it's so far back, but we bought a house on Strawberry Lane, and it was a fixer, and we fixed that up, and then um, we sold um, we sold Rolling Hills, and we were going to move down to Strawberry Lane. And after we finished that, we found a house that the owner of Home Base had built, and it was like a 10,000 square foot home, and it was a distressed foreclosure sale. We bought that and sold Strawberry Lane. Uh,
How much did you make on Strawberry Lane? Oh,
Couple
forget how
hundred
much you
grand.
made. Forget how much you
Yeah,
made. You bought it. You bought it on the market, right? On
right.
the market sale, fixer. You bought it. You fixed it up. How long did you hold it for?
I don't know, 8, 7, 8 or 9 months. We never
Okay.
really finished it. We sold it to a guy um, by word of mouth,
Uh-huh.
um,
Okay.
and um, he was a stockbroker. He bought it, and then that's when we bought the house on Tanglewood.
Okay. And then the house on Tanglewood, did you do a 1031 exchange on the Strawberry
No,
Lane to get
no,
out of
we didn't
curiosity?
have
Out of
to. Well,
curiosity.
we may have done. You know what? We may have. I don't remember. It's
Remember,
such
okay.
a long time ago. Um, but the house on Strawberry Lane, the house on Tanglewood was beautiful. It was,
Okay. And that
you can
was
imagine it.
okay. So
Yeah,
that was a large home, okay, right? It was in
right.
foreclosure.
It was about 10 bedrooms. Had a
Okay.
gym,
On the
steam
market.
room.
On the market or
Uh,
off market?
it was I bought it from a bank. It was again another good deal. It was a foreclosure sale. I think I paid 850,000 for it.
Okay,
Great buy.
okay, so there's sometimes individuals who are lucky and they can go directly to the bank and get a deal. And there's some individuals that the banks, put the property on the market with a real estate agent, and then you go through on the market. How did you get it?
Um, my buddy's mother found it. I contacted the bank, bought it as is. Um, there were there was 3 acres beneath the home on the hillside beneath it. So there was a backyard, then the hillside, and that from the start of the hillside down was the went into the real estate portion of the bank, and the house was in the residential portion of the bank. And after I bought the home and closed, or right before I closed, I found that my home that I was buying was encroaching on the 3 acres beneath me. That they had built a deck that protruded onto that property, so I got a further discount on the house as a result of that.
Hmm.
And then I made
Okay.
a deal with the guy who owned the property below, and he gave me a permanent easement so my deck would protrude out onto his property.
How much did that cost you to get the permanent easement?
Not a whole lot,
Oh,
you
okay.
know. Not really. It was it was a minor protrusion, but it was enough, that at some point in time somebody might get you know snooty about it and ask me to remodel my backyard.
Okay. So if I'm counting correctly, uh, that was your let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six. That was your seventh property, right?
Seventh or eighth. I mean, there might have been a
Okay.
couple of more in there that we bought and
Okay.
sold. Um, and I had my office down on 9th Street, that in Pedro. Um, that was part of myself and my brothers owned it, from my mom and dad. And so we were getting rents from that. And that was basically covering the nut on that. I bought a 7-acre place, an apartment unit on 9th Street in Grand, also. And
so hold on. This one, the newest one, the
that's
seventh
when the
one.
market took a that's when the
Okay.
market took a dive.
Okay. The one on I forgot the street you said. Tarrant. What was it? The T.
Tanglewood.
Tanglewood. Okay. That one. You bought that. It was a fixer. You
Well,
invested in
no,
the
that
property.
one wasn't a fixture. That one, the guy
Bank
who
owned.
owned. You remember? There's Home Depot, right? You know Home Depot. But before Home Depot, there was a company called Home Base. Do you remember that
No, I don't
company?
know. That was before me.
Anyway, this guy owned Home Base, so this guy did a great job.
Okay, but
I mean, one of the walls in the family room was an aquarium.
okay, but I guess it was a bank owned home that was nice then. That's weird.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Okay.
There had been a divorce, and it was
Okay.
just an ugly deal.
Okay.
And I stepped into that
And
deal.
did you move into that one?
Yes.
Okay. So then
With the
what
kids.
happened with the Rolling Hills home?
We sold it.
Oh, so you sold that one as well.
Yes.
Okay,
We
okay.
sold it.
So and then so that you got some appreciation on the Rolling Hills home as well. And then
Yes.
okay. So you did two sales at the same time.
I don't know if they were at the same time. They were
But
close in proximity.
okay, close to a minute. Okay, so then after that, so you lived in this the Tanglewood home, and then
Right.
you
The Tangle home was just too big. We were raising our kids, and it was great. I mean, I had a walnut ceiling, walnut walls, office. I had a snooker table in my family room. At that time we had we didn't. There was no such thing as a big screen TV, but we had like a 48-inch TV, well, the stand-up models, against the wall in a cabinet, and it was a beautiful place. It had a pool. It was beautiful. But our bedroom, the bedroom at that home was literally bigger than the house I live in right now. It was about 2,500 square feet.
wow.
Yes, and it was beautiful. And then downstairs there was a gym. I had a full gym, with a weight room, and it had a steam room in it, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
It was just a nice spot. But the kids, we lost contact with them because they were off into other corners of the house, and it was just it didn't have
Not
a good
cozy.
vibe.
It wasn't
It didn't
cozy. It
have
was
a
too
good
big.
vibe.
Okay.
Right. So
then,
we decided we were going to sell that.
okay.
And we sold that home. And I was in trial in San Francisco on the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard case at the time.
That was recent.
So well, it wasn't recent, but I was still with the firm that I had started, Jaffe Trutanich, Katina and Bloom, and I was living in San Francisco in an apartment because I was in court every day for 2 years, and I would come home on the weekends, and it was difficult. So we decided to sell Tanglewood, and my wife had bought a home in Palos Verdes, overlooking the McDonald's, and that's another story.
So your wife bought a property in Palos Verdes.
Right. She saw the house. It was really cheap. It was like $439,000. And it was on a bluff. I think it was like on the corner of Silver Spur and Crenshaw. And there was a McDonald's right below it. So every time they cooked a hamburger, you could smell it. And, the house just, I remember walking in and seeing it the first time after because she bought it without even seeing it. And I said, I can't live here. And so she went to go get the furniture to bring it back, because we did everything ourselves. We moved ourselves. We modeled things ourselves. We were
moving
we
is
were
a
a
pain.
couple. We were partners,
Wow,
and so Well, she went to go get the furniture. I took out a sledgehammer, knocked down a few walls, and tried to open up the house. And she looked at it and she went, "Oh my God, here we go again." And we lived in that house while we remodeled it, and I tore the house apart. I mean, literally, the downstairs was just studs. Built a new kitchen, opened up. There were no walls, so when you walked in the house, it was open. It had a nice big deck outside overlooking the McDonald's. It was, and it had
Okay.
a basement that was undeveloped, and I was going to develop the basement. But then, and we were in the middle of doing all this, and we'd finished the upstairs, and I was about ready to start on the downstairs underneath and put a 3 or 4 bedrooms down there. When one of my good friends next to my law office in San Pedro, who's a realtor, told me about the house I'm living in right now. And so we ended up selling the house on Silver Spur and Crenshaw to a buddy of mine who owned a Italian deli in San Pedro, and we moved here to Naples. And again, I was working on the Naples house at the same time I was working on the house at Silver Spur and Crenshaw. So we had bought this house while we still owned the other house. And then when we got to this house where it was livable, we moved into this house and then sold that to him.
Okay. And then how about the big property?
Which one?
The large.
We had sold that when we bought Strawberry Lane.
Okay. So the bank-owned home, you lived in it for how long?
How long did we live in the big house?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Not that long. Okay. And then so then you bought these other 2 homes. You moved to the one in
You got to
Naples.
remember, all the money that we're making, I was putting away for the kids' college education, because my daughter was going to USC and Loyola, and my son was living up in Davis, and ultimately went to Georgetown. My other daughter was living down in San Marcos. Now, while we were here in Naples, I looked in the new. I was a voracious, real estate want ad reader, and I happened to be looking at the LA Times one day, and there was a lakefront property for sale in San Marcos, and she was going to San Marcos State. So I told my wife, she goes, "Where are you going?" I go, "I'm driving to San Marcos." She goes, "For what?" I go, "I'm going to look at a piece of property." She goes, "You're not going to do that without me." So we both got in the car and drove down to San Marcos. And this guy, who was really a rocket scientist, had moved to Hawaii, retired and moved to Hawaii, and he was selling his house. And so it was right on Lake San Marcos. It was a nice piece of property, had access to the lake, was probably 25 feet from the house. And we bought that, ended up spending a ton of dough remodeling that and making that. I thought I would be retired there, but my daughter, who went to the University of San Marcos State, just a couple of years ago, moved to Ohio. So we just sold that property, but we VRBO'd that. We vacation rented that home. It had a boat dock. I had a boat that I rented with the vacation rental. It had a guy come in and build a pizza oven who came from Italy, and he built a beautiful pizza oven, big, freestanding, big, with that held wood.
Okay.
So that had wood storage and all that. Yeah, that was a beautiful home. I thought I'd be retired there, but then my daughter moved away, so we sold it.
You sold that one. Okay. Now, so how long did you keep that one?
God, yeah, 15, 16 years.
Oh, that's a long time. It's a long time.
Yeah, we vacation rented it. We rented it by the month to people, and it was rented all the time.
Okay.
I mean, literally, and we made some good friends. And to this day, even after we sold the house, I've stayed in contact with a couple of them. as a vacation rental. We started at probably rented it for $3,200 a month, and by the time we finished, it was up at $7,500 a month.
Oh, it's not bad. That's pretty
Yeah,
good. And then
yeah.
the VRBO was like the manager. They would
No,
collect the
we
money for
managed it
you.
ourselves. We didn't, we didn't go through any agency. We were our own. I had a little sign out in the front of the property that
Uh-huh.
said vacation rental by owner, do not disturb tenants. And I had my phone number there and they could call me.
Okay. Okay. So let's back up. So you mentioned an apartment unit. Uh,
Yes,
that was units or like a condo? What do you mean?
it was units. It was seven
Units.
units, two
7 units.
buildings.
Okay. So
And
okay,
that
that's
was
the
right where the market took a big crash.
okay. So those said
And
7 units were in what city?
San Pedro.
San Pedro. Okay. And then you manage it yourself, or you had a proper manager?
I managed them myself.
And how long do you still have that property?
No, the market took a crash and we were losing money every month on that property because there was rent control. We couldn't raise the rents. The property needed a ton of work. We bought it in a probate, and I ended up, selling it back, giving it back to the bank. Uh, Really not giving it back to the bank. My partner in the property bought it from the bank.
Okay.
So we returned it to the bank and then bought it from the bank.
Short sale or deed in lieu foreclosure?
Yeah, short sale.
Okay. Now, what was the motivation of buying that property to begin with?
Because I thought that the market wasn't going to crash. It was going to was going to continue to escalate like everything else we had done.
Yeah.
But if you remember the real estate crash there back in the
2008, 2009, 2010?
Yeah, the property went down below $300,000 for 7 units.
Okay, and you were losing money every month. That's why you sold it?
Every money, the mortgage was more than the rental income.
Okay. Well, if you would have just hung on, I mean, right now it'd be worth a lot more. Okay.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda,
Yeah, no. Okay, so then the San Marcos one
But you
you
have to
rented out.
remember, I had 4 kids. I
Yeah.
had at that time I had 3 kids in college
Okay.
that I was trying to
All
pay
right.
for because I didn't want
Okay.
them to have any student loans.
So we got 6 more minutes. Okay, so here's the key areas I'd like you to cover real quick. What were the lessons learned in managing 7 units, and then the lessons learned that you have for doing the vacation rental? Before you can answer those questions, since then, since you sold the vacation rental, since you bought the property you're in right now in Long Beach, did you buy any other properties?
Yeah, I have a home in Henderson, Nevada.
Okay, and then that one was purchased. What was the motivation for that one?
My son was the United States Attorney for Nevada. Donald Trump had appointed my son. My son went to law school with a gentleman named Adam Laxall, who was the Attorney General for Nevada. He asked my son to be the chief deputy of the Attorney General's office.
So you
While he
bought it
was
for your
there,
son to live in?
no, well, my son he was living in Reno, and he met Senator Mastow and Senator Heller. They recommended him to Donald Trump. Donald Trump appointed him United States Attorney, and he owned a home in Reno. He sold that, moved down to Las Vegas in the Summerlin area, and he had a couple of kids, and we wanted to visit our grandkids. So we were looking for a condo, and one of my clients had this home, and we bought it from my client.
Okay. So it was a place for you as a second home to go visit your family.
It was a place where just like I did with my daughter in San Marcos, I did the same thing there where and then when Biden became president, my son had to turn in his resignation, and Biden accepted it. And so now we have a home in Nevada, and no son living there because he's living in Manhattan Beach because he works for a company out here in
Okay.
LA, and he lives in Manhattan Beach.
All right, 4.5 minutes. What has been the biggest benefit to you of owning real estate and investing in real estate?
I would have never been able to pay for 4 years of college, to private schools, pay for law school. My kids don't have any student loans because of my investments in real estate and putting money away. And because you got to remember, I was a DA, and as a DA, you make $47,000 a year. That's what I was making when I left the DA's office. And real estate was really launched the financial side of my family, so that we could be where we're at today. And we're in pretty good shape.
Okay, very good. Good for you. And what was your biggest lesson learned with managing and owning the 7 units?
Marry a woman that wants to work hard.
Why? What did you do? What did you do with in terms of 7 units?
My wife was my partner. I mean, you got to remember, we remodeled these homes ourselves, and she was there with a broom sweeping up.
Okay, so for the homes that you bought and lived in, right?
Yes.
Okay,
remodeled
and
while we lived in them.
Okay. No, that's great. Yeah. Good for your wife. And what before we go to the 7 units, what was the biggest so the biggest lesson learned besides having a wife that supported you in remodeling the homes? What else was a big lesson learned in?
I learned to trust my judgment, not to be afraid, and to work hard. And always, even to this day, I'm 10 steps ahead down the road, looking at what could happen, because the 7-unit apartment building that I lost my ass on taught me a big lesson about real estate. You have to forecast what the economy is going to do and make sure that you can afford it when things turn bad.
Okay. And how long did you own the 7 units for?
Couple 3 years.
Okay. During the time, I know the value was going down. You were losing money in the month each month.
It went from like 750,000 down to like 300 grand.
Okay. And so besides the equity loss, besides the loss in the income on the payment, what other challenge did you have with managing the 7 units? Biggest challenge?
Well, I was lucky that I had good tenants. They were there a long time. Granted, the rents were cheap, but they paid. You didn't have. It was just a bad investment. But
Okay.
look at, I've had 15 to 20 great investments and one bad one. I'll take that batting average any day.
Okay, all right, good for you. And then, what was the biggest lesson learned for the for the vacation rental? I mean, you just put a sign out and rented it with a sign. I mean, you had to market it other ways too, no?
Well, the vacation rental by owner was different back then than it is now. You pay a fee, and you could be on their website. Mm-hmm. And you could have a page on their website, which I did. I paid that fee and had a page on their website. But they didn't. Most of my rentals didn't come through VRBO. Most of my rentals came from the sign in front of my house, because it was right next to the country club. It was on the lake. I had a sign on the waterfront, so people that would go to San Marcos Hotel would rent a boat and go run, and then they'd see this sign that said vacation rental, and then they'd call. And 90% of the people that I rented to over the 15 years, maybe more than 90%, came from those signs, not from VRBO.
Okay. And what would you say to someone who's never owned real estate?
Don't be scared. Trust your judgment.
Okay. And what would you say to somebody who owns a home but never bought investment? What would you say to someone who owns a home but never bought investment property?
Don't over